We all remember a teacher who changed our life for the better. But did you ever tell them? Now there's a book filled with stories to make teachers feel appreciated. Earlier, we spoke with Al Roker's wife, award-winning journalist Deborah Roberts, about her new book. Check it out.
Welcome to DBL, Deborah Roberts.
Deborah, it's so nice to see you. So your book, Lessons Learned and Cherished, has so many stories from you, celebrities, and your friends about memories with teachers. What inspired you to gather all of these stories?
I think more than anything else, my own memories. When I would give speeches from time to time, or just even now and again, just talking with friends, I would mention my 6th grade English teacher, Mrs. Dorothy Hardy. And I would always notice that when I talked about Mrs. Hardy and her impact on me, she was this English teacher who, there she is right there. I got a chance to reconnect with her many years later when I began my network career. She has since passed on, but she was, you can tell by even her outfit right there, she was this prim and proper teacher, and her nails were done, and she wore pantyhose, and she had a high bar for excellence. You know, diagramming sentences, learning your poetry, no chewing gum in her class. And everybody was petrified of Mrs. Hardy. But on the other hand, at least for me, I wanted to please Mrs. Hardy. I wanted to rise to the occasion. And I would hear from other people that they had a teacher that was similar, who inspired something in them.
That's so true. And you spoke about the teacher, Dorothy, that inspired you. I just wanted to share a quick story. When I was in senior year, I really liked the movies and I liked acting in Hollywood, but you know, I played football and it wasn't cool for me to go into theater. And one teacher, Miss Lindenfeld, introduced this class called film studies, and we got to make our own movie, and I was director, produce it, and act in it. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would have went into that direction. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Miss Lindenfeld out there. I don't know where you're at, but you inspired me to do what I wanted to do, and that's why I'm
That's what this
here.
book does.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
That's really cool. I've never heard that story. That's awesome.
I love that.
I taught middle school. I taught 7th grade science for 5 years in South Florida. And this show, Daily Blast Live for Teacher Appreciation Week, a couple of years back, had one of my former students on, and
that's right.
He said some really impactful things to me that I'm not going to say right now because I'll start crying. But he and I, we spoke on the phone a week and a half ago for a couple hours. I just consider him a friend of mine. So teachers also learn from their students as well. He's just a really inspiring young man. But speaking of inspiring, celebrities like Oprah, Brooke Shields, Spike Lee, you know, they all shared their stories with you. So I have to ask you, and this is a tough question, whose story stood out amongst those titans?
Oh my gosh. Well, it would be like a parent choosing their favorite kid, right? I'm not going to go there.
You're just like, just write it on a piece of paper and slide it to me.
But I will say that there were some, like Melody Hobson, who is the business mogul. Her story stood out because she talked about a teacher who was really tough on her. And if you read the story, you might think that it feels a little too intense. And Melody told me this story with intention. She said, I learned grit from that teacher. I learned that sometimes, you know, when a teacher is tough on you, it teaches you a valuable lesson. So that was the thing that stood out for me, that there were people who said that there weren't stories always that were just look great and a skip through the park. Sometimes there were teachers who were really difficult, but that was what taught them a lesson. And so you get lessons in all kinds of ways, and I was inspired by that.
Grit, we're learning, is so important, and resolve and resiliency. I had a teacher, too, that everyone wants to talk about their own teacher, but I had one like that. But I do want to get to this. This is important. Teachers obviously important, but it's really hard to ignore the fact that many are leaving the profession in record numbers. And I wanted to speak about, you know, Mrs. Hardy for you, and could there be another Mrs. Hardy, or are they leaving before they get to be the Mrs. Hardy for you? Why do you think this is happening?
That's a very good question, and I think you are right. I mean, you put your finger right on it, because I worry that there won't be these Mrs. Hardys, because Mrs. Hardy chose this as a profession. She taught for, I don't know, 30 years. And now I think the average time, you know, they're leaving the profession in 4 or 5 years, if they even stay that long. I think wages, of course, are flat. They have been flat for the last 3 decades or more. You know, I think more than anything else, they feel disrespected. They feel that people don't really honor what they do. They don't have any autonomy. They feel that local school districts and states and governments are now managing what they do. So I think we have got to use our voices, and we've got to highlight teachers, and we've got to, I think, have this conversation and let teachers know that we value them and we want them to stay in these professions, and we want them to feel treasured.
Deborah, thank you for joining us on DBL. To our viewers, you can grab a copy of Deborah's book, Lessons Learned and Cherished, wherever books are sold. Thanks again, Deborah. Much needed right now.
You're
we'll be right
great.
back.
Thank you.